As a kid, before we went to bed, we would read different Bible stories, and we had this children's Bible, and I remember this image of the flood that we would look at. And I remember as a kid being both horrified at what would happen and also sort of amazed at what God would do to save Noah. Maybe that came from the fact that we lived in a river valley and our farmland was not unfamiliar with the effects of flood. Even from a young age, I remember those. But we're meant to read this story of our first reading from the story of Noah as both a story of punishment and also purification. That what God is about in this first reading is, first of all, punishing the sins, that God wants to get rid of any sin that is in the world. And secondly, that he wants to restore. We can think of this story of Noah and the animals as a sort of floating Eden. Think about that happened shortly before this story that we heard of Noah. That God is restoring what was lost through the sin of Adam and Eve and their descendants. That God wants to restore creation as it was in the beginning. So both this punishment, but also a restoration that's happening. Interestingly, God also does this flood also happens over 40 days, reminiscent of the 40 years that Israel was in the desert, but also as we start tomorrow and this time of Lent, the 40 days of Lent that we get from taking this time of Lent, subtracting the Sundays and Ash Wednesday, give us the 40 days of Lent, which is also for us a time of purification, of getting rid of sin in our own life, and restoration. In fact, in other English-speaking parts of the world, today is known as not Fat Tuesday, but Shrove Tuesday, and the idea of going to confession on this day in order to prepare yourself for the 40 days of Lent. What a wonderful thing that we as a parish will have 7 hours of opportunities to go to confession tomorrow from noon to 7 at St. Henry's to do that same thing, to allow God to cast out the sin in our life, but also to restore us to the way he wants us to be. I've noticed recently, and I've heard other people mention it too, that there's just a sense, maybe more than ever, that you can almost feel the evil one at work. How the evil one wants to destroy families and our culture and our country, and the need to recognize that God wants to restore us. And what a beautiful thing as we begin this Lent to do that together, to begin by getting rid of sin in our life and allowing God to restore us, so that by extension, by all of us doing this together, God can root out sin from the world and restore us and the world to the image of Christ.